What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another edition of On the Road to Victory. I am your host, Jimmy Smith, and I hope you're all having yourselves a great night. It is a beautiful Tuesday out here. They called for these crazy storms were coming. You know how those, I feel like, the weather people are definitely just like sports media, just wild stuff always being thrown out there. But hopefully you stayed safe out there, had a great day yourselves. But I don't know about you. I'm ready though for some sicko season, baby. That's right. We talked about it. The free agency period would begin this week here at On the Road to Victory. Now, March 15th, when the year league begins, all that great stuff going down. We'll talk about everything, leading up to it, but we're getting started going through each position. And the way we do this, you can look over here and you can see, I'll show you what the Eagles have in cap space, their draft picks, then who they have on their current roster, whether that's, on the active roster or a reserve future contract signing, who their free agents are. Then, of course, if you're not here for the Eagles stuff, you can always go right to that full list of free agent quarterbacks. We'll look at all of those guys and I think like 37 total. And then we'll look at the top 5 fits for the Eagles. And I'll do this for each position. Some will have more fits. So top 10, maybe top 15, 20, depends on how crazy we're getting and where I feel we need to add. So we'll talk about all that stuff. This is not a live video, but I would love to hear from you. Appreciate you taking the time, hitting the like button, subscribing. Everything you're doing to support the channel. Cannot thank you enough. But let's jump right into this bad boy. We're going to take a look just to give you a little bit of idea of what's going on here. Let's take a look at the Eagles' ammo for this offseason. What kind of cap space do they have? And obviously the draft picks don't matter too much when it comes to free agency, right? But keep in mind they've got those 16 picks in the next 2 years, obviously 7 that next year. So a lot of picks to deal with here. You don't necessarily have to sign someone in free agency. Maybe you make a trade. Maybe, you do whatever the hell you want, but there's a lot of options. And it's so funny to see people, with predictions and talking about the Eagles doing it. It's like, bro, you haven't even seen, you don't even know where they're picking. We know pick 22 in the first round. That's it right now. Like, come on. So we'll see who they add. But right now, $20.2 million in cap space. We've got future cap space. So if you need to sign someone, add those dummy years so that it is a low cap hit like Howie always does. Well, you can definitely do that. So you see the ammo that the Eagles are working with here. And whether or not you're a fan of the Eagles watching this or not, you'll see the list of guys. But this gives you an idea of, looking at that stuff where I want to focus. But you've already seen the show how the Eagles can create cap space. So we've got plenty of money. That is not something we need to worry about. But we're going to talk about what we have at each of these positions. And starting it off with quarterback, obviously, QB1, baby, Jalen Hurts. So feel pretty good about who we have as our starter. But here is what is going on. Now, no reserve future contract signings at quarterback, but Marcus Mariota being a free agent, it lets you know Tanner McKee probably going to be that backup. Now, that's what we're going to talk about here today. Should we look for a free agent? Do we look for another young guy to groom? Even though you've got McKee here, maybe you look in the later rounds. That to me, obviously you're not using a high pick when you have Jalen Hurts here. So I think Tanner McKee, love this kid, bright future ahead. Not so sure we bring back Marcus Mariota, but you do want to have a veteran guy here, I do believe. It doesn't have to be, a veteran guy, but I'm just saying, Mariota, if he, comes back for a veteran minimum deal, not, against it, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for here. But you see what's going on with the Eagles. And obviously, a lot of these other positions will have a lot more going on with that stuff. But you see 2 quarterbacks under contract, 1 free agent. So definitely could be in the market. But let's take a gander at who these free agent quarterbacks are. Now, people are going to get cut. Things are going to happen where more people will become free agents. I do like another recap of this in about like a month or so. We'll talk about all these guys, people added, people that have been signed, guys that re-sign with their teams, all that stuff. So I will keep you up to date throughout free agent period and the draft with everything you need to know. But let's take a look here. And before I show you the unrestricted guys, let's take a look here at some exclusive rights guys. So this just means they don't have 2 accrued season in the NFL. So therefore, the team that they play for, they can offer them the vet minimum, or I'm sorry, the minimum there for a 2-year player, and that is going to be like league low there. So it's not going to cost you much. So obviously a team will do that. And the player either signs it or they just don't play. And the only way, they don't go back to that team is if the team's just like, yeah, no thanks, and don't qualify them an offer, and they become an unrestricted free agent. So that could happen for any of these guys, but I think the Bengals would happily take Jake Browning back, cost nothing there. And, these are young guys that you're trying to develop. So I could see, these guys going back to their teams, but those are the exclusive rights guys. And then we have one restricted free agent here in Felipe Franks. And, restricted just means that they have 3 accrued seasons here or under. And they, usually, guys that have been banged up, weren't first round picks, things where, there are tenders that are placed on these guys. So if somebody wants to sign them, their team can place like a second round tender. If the guy was a second round pick, now Felipe Franks, I don't even think he was drafted. So therefore they wouldn't get draft compensation. But if someone offered them something, they could match it. If not, they can let him walk. Now, if it's a guy that, is worth more or was, like a first round pick, they could get first round pick compensation if someone signs them. So that's something you worry about with restricted guys. Now, Felipe Franks, I think the Falcons were using him at tight end as well. So, hey, maybe we're interested in one of those, versatile pieces we can use all over. And we've seen it before with Tyree Jackson there. But that is the restricted guy out there. Now let's take a look at the 33 unrestricted free agents here. So you've got some guys with starting experience. You've got some veteran guys, some young guys. So, obviously, I mentioned it there. If you're an Eagles fan, you're obviously not too concerned, but there are some, decent backups here that would make you feel much better than just throwing Tanner McKee into the fire. Now, I think the kid's got a bright future. Maybe in his second year, he really develops and you don't got to worry about it. And you're just looking at a third string practice squad kind of guy. I would be happy with that. But we're here to talk about free agents. So, guys like Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, I think they're going to go places and get starting jobs. Some of these other guys, Brissett, Mariota, Minshew, they've been starters. I don't know that someone signs them to be starters. Same for Dobbs or Darnold or Winston or Trubisky, Drew Lock. But there are a lot of guys, Huntley, Sudfeld, that are backups that I think, much more in our price range, much more what you're looking for there. And, you got some older guys and Flacco and Bridgewater, Carson Wentz. We'll see if those guys, maybe retire. I think Bridgewater is supposed to. Wentz, not so old, just not so good anymore. So that's why I mentioned him. But you see some names out there that could be out of the league, but tried to gather everyone I possibly could for you here. And as I said, I will keep this up to date. We'll talk about all this stuff as we go through, but I wanted to get this series started. I know you sickos are waiting for this. So want to hear your thoughts on these quarterbacks. Who do you like? Who would you like to see the Eagles bring in here? I think to me, you're looking for, more of a mid-tier bottom end guy. You're not going to acquire one of these starting guys, obviously like a Kirk Cousins, who is going to go somewhere and be a starter, if not at the Vikings. So, a lot of these guys, before free agency even begins, will sign with their teams. So, again, we're starting this early because we've already gone through all the cap space stuff, all that stuff you needed to get yourself prepared. Unfortunately, our season ended early. So, I will be, breaking this stuff down along with everything else. I'll keep you up to date with everything that is happening. Do not fear here. And look, I'll make live ones for breaking news if it's not that important. Look, I told you guys about Hassan Reddick the other day. In case you missed it, this is just business as usual, man. Hassan Reddick didn't ask for a trade. They're not calling. We are gauging his market. We're getting the interest. What would the trade value be for him? What would you pay him? That's just for a guy coming up. This is his contract year. We've talked about it all year. So the media will get you twisted, but we're here to stick to sicko season and talk about the Birds and how we can improve this roster. So I picked 5, and honestly, it was like, I really don't even care. You could get an undrafted kid and, just see, maybe 2 of them or just one of these bottom of the barrel kind of guys and go from there in the offseason because I feel comfortable with 1 and 2, Hurts and McKee. But let's talk about it. I picked 5. Let me know who your top 5 are, maybe your top 3 or just 1, whoever you would take. Love to hear from you. But looking at number 5 here, I got PJ Walker. Now you're thinking, what the hell? Again, this is not a guy that, you're sitting here saying, oh my God, this is the bee's knees. This is who we need to go out in free agency and get. But keep in mind what I'm talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a QB3. this is what I'm looking at here. Somebody who's not going to cost you anything. He's got some experience in the league here. And you can see, out of Temple, a Jersey kid here, weighing 215, baby, 5'11", little guy there, undrafted in 2017. But, been doing some things. He had some magic there in Carolina. But honestly, you know, uh, completions 148.6 completion percentage. That is atrocious. 674 yards, one touchdown, five interceptions, 6.1 yards per attempt, 112.3 yards per game there. He was sacked 11 times, 13 rushes for 30 yards, 2.3 yards per rush, no touchdowns, 4 fumbles. So, yeah, man, I'm talking veteran minimum. And this is just how I felt about this list. You could go out and probably get another quarterback, but for me, this is a guy that isn't going to cost you what those other guys are going to cost you. So I tried to get somebody that was like, okay, let's look at bottom of the barrel, and not to knock PJ. I love his game. He's fun to watch. Maybe you can continue to try to help him out there. And he spent time in the XFL with the Colts, the Panthers, as I mentioned, the Bears. So not just the Browns this past year, but I like the kid. And, I wouldn't be against having him as QB3, QB4 for this offseason. But looking at another name, a backup quarterback who I really like and think he could compete for that QB2, QB3 with McKee. But 4 years in the league, only played for the Ravens so far, 6'1", 204 out of Utah, undrafted in 2020. But you see, he actually started one game last year, a 56.8 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, sacked 4 times there. But I like Tyler Huntley a lot. I think that this kid, we've talked about in multiple years, having a backup quarterback like Snoop here, I would not be against it. He started 9 games in his career, and on his career, he has a 64.6 completion percentage. So, take these numbers with a grain of salt from last year, getting thrown into the fire with some of these games. He got to start one of them, but much better completion percentage over his career. And I think somebody that would be perfect to come in the offseason. And, he can use his legs. He can, he's fits exactly what we try to do here. So, and you don't always have to have that. We talk about Tanner McKee being more of your pocket passer, stand-up guy, but Jalen Hurts can do it all. So whatever the hell you want as your backup, that's fine. But I like me some Tyler Huntley and would not be against it. Let me know how you feel about Snoop there. Let's stick to the purple, and let's go Joshua Dobbs, who had quite a wild season, man, getting traded all over the damn place last year. Went from, Cleveland traded him to Arizona, then Arizona traded him to Minnesota. But he's played all over, man. He started with the Steelers, been with the Jags, the Lions, the Titans, the Cardinals, out of Tennessee there. A 4th-round pick back in 2017, 6'3", 220. And you can see he started 12 games, had a 62.8 completion percentage, 2,464 yards, 13 touchdowns, but 10 interceptions there. Oh, sacked 30 times. Oh, my God. Now, 5.5 yards per rush, 6 touchdowns. That's great. 14 fumbles. Holy hell. So you're looking at 24 turnovers right there, 30 sacks. Ugh. So looking as a backup here, and I love that he was able to go and start for some of these teams that needed help with injuries. Fantastic story for the young man, and I like the kid. I do, but it doesn't have to be priority here or anything. But I think he could actually get a better job than the Eagles. I think someone could actually offer him QB2 and he could go start somewhere. But I do like the kid. I like that he's able to use his legs, and I think he continues to get better. Love his story. So thought I'd throw him on the top 5 again. I just don't feel we need much at the quarterback position. So this for me, it's like running back and receiver, like stuff like that, it's going to be hard because I don't even know how I'm going to make a top 10, top 20 here because there's so many awesome players out there. But let's keep this train rolling. You see at number 2 now, Tyrod Taylor. Oh, yeah. And, just beat us. Not very happy about that. Cannot believe the way. Nope, not even going to talk about it. So, Tyrod Taylor, this dude, he's been in the league for 642 years, 34 years old, going into his 14th year, man. He's been all over Ravens, Bills, Browns, Chargers, Texans, and then most recently with the Giants there out of Virginia Tech. He was a 6th-rounder back in 2011. My God. But started 5 games last year, 64.4 completion percentage. And Tyrod Taylor, man, look, 61.7 completion percentage on his career. But I love his game. Same thing we're talking about, dual threat quarterback here. But, he actually has a good completion percentage there. had over 1,000 yards last year, stepping in for Daniel Jones, 5 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Didn't have any rushing touchdowns there. Sacked 17 times, fumbled the ball 4 times. So, still some turnovers there to watch out for. But again, I'm talking about backups here. So if he wants to come fight for QB2, QB3, I would not be against it. Now, number 1 on my board, and I feel like this is year 3 in a row where this dude's number 1 on my board when it comes to bringing in a backup quarterback. So Jacoby Brissett, man, obviously the familiarity there with, Nick Sirianni. We talk about that. And I like this kid's game. And he played at Florida, played at NC State, and he was that kid from the Patriots, if you remember, back in 2016, 3rd rounder. And obviously Jimmy G was there, all that stuff going on there. But after that, he went to the Colts, then the Dolphins, then the Browns, and now most recently he went to the Commanders this past year. 6'4", 235, 31 years of age there. This will be his 9th season. But you can see he didn't start any games, but when he came in, he looked good. 78.3 completion percentage, only 224 yards, but 74.7 yards per game, 9.7 yards per attempt. Had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, wasn't sacked, didn't fumble the ball. So really looked good from the small sample size we got there of Jacoby Brissett. And Jacoby Brissett, on his career, this is somebody that, 61.3 completion percentage. He's got 10,574 yards, 51 touchdowns on 23 interceptions in his career. So I like Jacoby Brissett. I've mentioned it a million times, few years now, that you're going to bring somebody in, it would be him. Now, let me just go back to saying, though, that I don't think we need him. I think Tanner McKee is going to be that QB2. So you could get away with getting, a PJ Walker, an undrafted kid that you want to groom throughout the summer. That would be perfectly fine with me. But that's all I've got for you here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We got this bad boy started. It's free agency time, baby. So I hope you sickos are ready. Hopefully you enjoyed the start here with quarterbacks. We'll get through the running backs, receivers, tight ends, offensive line. Then we'll get to the defense. We'll break it all down. And special teams. Do not fear. I include everyone. So we'll go through it all. Love to hear your thoughts from this. If you got anything from it, do me a favor, hit that like button. You can always subscribe down below. But until next time, I am Jimmy Smith, and this is On the Road to Victory. You all have yourselves a great night. Stay safe out there. And as always, say it with me now. Go Birds!